I got everybody's attention, we'll go ahead and get going. Go over our agenda. Got our regular club announcements. We do have a BAP update. The October fish swap's coming up soon, so hopefully, some of y'all didn't get to make the spring one. The October one's coming. We're hoping that it's going to be even bigger than the spring, which turned out really well. We got our guest speaker here, Bruce Yates, who's an expert in guppies that we're really excited to have. We got a species profile for American flag fish. And then, of course, we got our attendance raffle drawing at the end. And just like normal, for our normal drawing, we'll call tickets at the end. And as we call your ticket, we usually do 2 or 3 at a time. If you hear your number called, come up, get one thing. And then once you step aside, we can call somebody else in. But we've hit 1,000 members on our Facebook page. Wow. So as a celebration, appreciate it. Huh?
It's all in there.
So for a giveaway for our 1,000 members, we're going to give away a shirt, 3 stickers, and then we've got what brand it was? Aquatic sponge filter. And so the way we'll do that is just like our normal ticket giveaway. We'll call the first number we pick out, and then whoever we call get it, and then we'll just put you back in for the shuffle for our regular giveaway. So just because you want to, you don't get to participate at the table. All right. So I haven't went over our mission statement in a while, so I guess I can read it. So our mission statement is create an aquarium club of like-minded aquarists, discuss the aquarium hobby, learn from fellow aquarists and professionals, have aquarium-related events for members to exchange in fish and plants, promote the hobby beyond our group to encourage fish keeping within our community. So also, as our monthly banner contest goes, we've got our winner for this month up. So it's definitely a sweet picture. Be sure you get in the next one. Be sure you get on there and like and comment. And, you might be the next banner for the ETAA. Our September meeting is going to be Tia Davis doing saltwater for beginners. So we're definitely excited about that. I had a lot of people reach out about wanting to do saltwater. And for our club announcements, we got our new shirt coming out. So we're going to be having it in these 2 colors right here, the dark heather and indigo. And it's going to be our full logo on the front. And then on the back, we're just going to have the simple logo. So I would guess probably by the next meeting, we'll probably have those. If not, we can put it on the Facebook page whenever we do get them.
Yeah, I think we were close to this meeting, so surely.
Yeah, it was kind of a crunch, but nonetheless. Oh, which also adds, for the 1K giveaway, if we call your name and we happen to not have your size, then just let us know, and when we get our new orders in, we'll get you one of the new shirts. And then also, as a side note, Jason, he couldn't make it. He's got a family event going on right now, but his wife, Robin McMahon, just got hired on for social media marketing associate for Select Koi. So that's pretty awesome, Really good. All right, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to Curtis to go over our BAP updates.
Okay, we really don't have a huge BAP update because we really haven't met a whole lot, but one of the things that we're talking about doing, this is going to be something, is because of the fact that we're such a small club and we don't have 48 fish rooms amongst us, this, that, and the other, we're going to probably get rid of the, hey, if you breed, your flagfish, you have to donate X amount. We're going to go and say, all right, we've got your $10 for the entry, and that's pretty much going to just give you your lifetime. All right, you've paid for, all the awards you're going to receive. So that encourage people to just breed and not feel like, I don't want to give away 5 of my Nothobranchius or something like that. And we weren't really going to, as a whole, we were literally going to be like, oh, you have to do this. But I think if we just say across the board, we're not going to ask for anybody to donate fish from their breedings. If they feel like they want to, by all means, let's do that. But until our club gets bigger and more established and we have, lots of fish rooms and this, that, and the other, then at this point, we're going to just suspend anybody having to donate anything. If you anything you donate is obviously much appreciated, and that's great. But that's our main thing that I hadn't even brought this up to the people other than our board about this. But this is just something to get, because we haven't gotten anybody, no one submitted anything yet, and that's obviously, I think, too, because of the fact that it takes a few minutes to breed and stuff like that. Now, I was going to submit something today, but I barely got here on time, and I brought the fish, but I didn't bring the sign-in sheet. So if anybody breeds anything, it doesn't matter if you get, Mitch, I look at you, if you get 3 corridors from your...
I got 25.
But the first time you didn't, right?
I had 4.
The first time you got 4. Now he's got the 25. Don't feel like you can't submit your first, because that's an accomplishment. You should be proud of something like that. So, and most of the time when I breed stuff, I mean, I only get like 3, 4, 5, because I really don't make a whole lot of effort. And that's the kind of club we are right now. Until we decide, hey, we're all going to have, not to throw you out, Rob, but we're all going to have Rob's fish room with, a couple hundred tanks. Until we're not there yet. So till then, let's just suspend that, and hopefully everybody can start submitting some things like that. And if anybody has any ideas as to how we can make anything better, PM one of the board members, the BAP members, anything like that, just suggesting is great. So that's really the only real update that I had. I'm going to hand it over to Bruce at this point, or you got something? Gotcha.
All right, so just want to give a quick update on the fish swap. So is everyone planning on going? Anybody can't make it? You just got to cancel whatever you had scheduled. I think it's going to be a lot bigger. We still have a couple tables left, plus we can add tables. So if you're interested, please get with me. You can send me a message through like Messenger from Facebook or whatever, or you can get me in person or whatever, and we'll get you set up with the table. We've got a couple companies that will be attending, as well as just local breeders and all that kind of fun. We even have like an artist who's interested in bringing some artwork and stuff. So if you're interested, we do have $20 for a full table, and then $10 for a half table. And that's basically, if you don't have enough to put a full table, we'll just put a table out there, and 2 people can share a table if they want to bring a couple items, couple fish, whatever you want to do. So that's kind of...
You can make a little money to spend.
Yeah, you can recoup your $2. But if you guys have any questions, just get with me. It is in the same location in that Fountain City Lions Club. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
One thing I wanted to ask everyone to consider, in order for the club to kind of, because last time we made up the money that we spent on the building, and we did good with the first one. But in order for the club to actually get some funds to put back for stuff for us to do next year, I'd like to do a silent auction. In order for us to do that, I'll need donations from members. And what I'll do is I'm going to sit them out, and I'm going to do it on the hour. So every hour, every 2 hours, the auction will close, and that item will then be given to the person who donates the money that they were doing for it. So that way we can all kind of participate in funding the club for the next year.
All right.
And see me if you're interested in that.
And then without any further ado, we're going to introduce Bruce Yates. All right.
Yeah.
For guppy breeding and shipping of fish.
All right. Well, and get somebody's phone here.
It's to record the audio.
Yeah.
Our, I got caught a little off guard.
Our cameraman's on here today.
Is it not? Is it acting like it's recorded?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see it. Well, thank you for asking me and allowing me to be here today. When Curtis first contacted me about this, it was one day, I think you were at my house, I think. Oh, no, you called me.
Yeah.
Hey, you called me and said something about you wanted a professional. I'm like, I'm not a professional. I don't know. What do you mean professional? He said, well, you got a fish room and you sell them and you got a website and that makes you professional. I said, well, okay, if that's the case, then I guess so. But I'm a retired minister and pastor. I pastored for 40 years and kind of had just a hobby with fish. And so when I asked Curtis how long I had to speak, he said, well, I said, I'm a preacher. Old preachers never die. We just go on and on and on and on. So I'll try not to just keep going on and on. But the truth is, I don't feel like I'm a professional. I just feel more like a hobbyist like you. I just kind of have focused in over time just on guppies. and just on some quarries. And so I have maybe a little more knowledge than some folks simply because I've kept it narrow. I love all fish, and I've had other kinds of fish over the years, but I just kind of narrowed in on these. And I'll start by just showing you some fish. Some of my photos, if I can do this right, I took these myself. I'm not a good photographer, but I got lucky on some of them. This is probably the most popular fish that I sell. It's a red albino, and I am really am drawn to the albinos for some reason, more than the non-albinos, even though I have the others. This is a female. I'm going to show you some pictures of fish that I really no longer have. I wish I did. I've lost them, and that happens sometimes. This is an albino yellow galaxy. Wish I could find more of these. I really love them. But to keep albinos going, you have to cross them every once in a while into a non-albino, and I couldn't find them anymore. I couldn't locate anywhere. And so albinos have a tendency to fertility issues, and so they just quit having babies, and I lost them. But when I did have them, I also had some albino bluegrass. And so I crossed those two, and I created this one, which was albino blue galaxy. That's what I called it anyway. And I got really lucky with that photo. It was one of the best I think I've ever had of a fish. And so I wish I had that one. This is an albino blue topaz. I call it sky blue because when I first purchased it, that's what the seller called it, was sky blue. And I've been able to maintain them quite readily by crossing them primarily from fish I've imported from Thailand. But it's one of my favorites, and it's also one of the top sellers that I have. This is a female, and the reason I showed her is because her finnage is so long, but it's a half black pastel female. These are fish I love. They're black Moscows. This is a female black Moscow. It has extended finnage, and I've been able to maintain them over the years without losing that strain by crossing them from fish. Either I ordered from folks here in the U.S. or from Thailand. This is a half black pastel male, and I've been able to maintain them pretty easily. Red grass, and an albino red grass. The next is a pair of green deltas. Green is a color that's hard to maintain. It leans toward blue, and it's really hard to keep a nice green. This is, I can remember the name of it, an albino Russian red lace snakeskin. I had these and would love to have kept them, but I don't have them anymore. They quit breeding. And these are albino full platinum. I have these currently. And the last one, I think, is a green Moscow. And then I have a picture of Corys. I've had different kind of Corys over the years, but black Cory is one that I have just really liked. I focused on. It's kind of rare, and so I bred them for years, and I sell them. And really, that's all I sell are the Guppies and the Corys are the two things that I sell. So I'll stop right there for the moment and just talk about how I got into the fish hobby. It was pretty much probably like a lot of you did. When I was a teenager, ended up getting a tank, had guppies and mollies and just a fish like that. And then if you've been like me over the years, I get into it and then I get out of it. You know, I get kind of burnt out and I get rid of tanks. And so that's what happened. But a few years after married, my wife and I, we got a couple of tanks and got into angelfish. Love angelfish. And I'm talking about in the early 80s. Well, no, we were married in 73, so I'm talking about mid-70s, I guess. We got some tanks. And got into raising angels, not necessarily breeding them to sell just because they're beautiful. To me, an angelfish, especially breeding angelfish and watching them herd their little ones around a tank if you let them raise their own, is one of the most fascinating things that you can watch in nature is both discus and angelfish, do that. And others will do it too. But so I got into that a little bit, and I brought a couple of books that I got over the years, and this one I got years ago. And if you raise angels, this is the neatest little book on angelfish. I read this thing so many times. Whoever was a writer was just an excellent writer. And this little book really taught me how to breed angels, raise them, leave them with the parents to be raised, but also take them away from parents and raise them by yourself, separate. About diseases and just all kinds of things. Now there's all kinds of angels, all kinds of varieties of angels, but back then there weren't that many. I guess I'm blocking that. But I just brought some books to look at. Back when I first started, I used to get books at Woolworths. Remember Woolworths?
Yeah.
This is the little tropical fish pet library. This little book, Enjoy Your Guppies. Whoops. Another one about guppies. I just got some here. And then just an old book that I just thought you might find interesting. And one book that I've got is the book on, it's The Proper Care of Guppies. The real legend in raising guppies is Stan Schubel is his name. And if you're into guppies much, you've heard of his name, Stan Schubel. And he wrote this book years ago. It's out of print now. You can't, if you get one, you're going to pay big bucks for it. Let me just put it that way. But because it's out of print, you can go to your library and they can get it. You can read it. And what I did, because it's out of print, you can copy it. And so I made a copy of it. And this is the book that really tells you all about how to raise guppies, how to breed guppies, guppy diseases, all those sorts of things. And I just brought those books just in case you might be interested in looking at them. Let me bring this back up if I can. Well, I raised angels. I sold angels to the local fish stores off and on just to get money to offset the expenses, and which we all have. If we raise fish, we've got some expenses to do. But my wife is handicapped, and I mentioned to Amy, I believe it was, that one of the reasons I don't get to come to a lot of meetings is because I have to stay, I'm her primary caregiver, and I have to be with her, or somebody has to be with her. So my daughter's with her today. But we built a handicapped accessible home in 2003, and we were in the process of doing that. I told her, her name's Wanda, and I said, I'd like to have a room where I could set up, instead of a tank over here somewhere and a tank over here and a tank over there, is have, a section of tanks. So in the spare bedroom, when we had it built, we had extra receptacles placed along one wall. And in the closet, I had a bathroom sink stuck in the closet. So I could hook up a Python to it and it wouldn't have to carry water and all that kind of stuff. So over time, I got a few tanks in there on stands. But so that's kind of how I got in the hobby. But how I got into guppies specifically was that I had them off and on the same, and I would periodically, I didn't have what you call real great quality because I got them at Woolworths and I got them at Walmart and I got them wherever. But I would sell sometimes to some local fish stores where I got a few, just swapping them out. But in 2004, I discovered Aquabid. Any of you familiar with Aquabid? If you've heard of Aquabid, okay. Well, I discovered Aquabid, and I ordered both angelfish and I ordered guppies. And on Aquabid, and I'll move on to this next slide if I figure out how to do that. This was just a picture I happened to take that I use on my website, but got lucky with that one. But on Aquabid, I saw an advertisement for the IFGA, and that's the International Fancy Guppy Association. So I went to the website and I started looking, and I joined, and it cost $25 to join. But the neat thing about the IFGA is for members who join, there is a whole library of articles, just article after article after article and publication from the top breeders in the nation about how to breed guppies, how to set up a fish room, how to take care of sick fish, and just all kinds of things. And I even was so into this that I printed off the articles. I don't know why, but I did. I've got physical copies of those articles that are there. But that was how I really built my, I guess you could say, knowledge base of what to do with guppies and how to raise guppies and take care of guppies. I also read on there that there was a IFGA show in Atlanta, and my wife and I attended that show. I had never been to a fish show, and what they do at their fish shows are just amazing. The quality of fish, and you get to talk to the top breeders, and you just can learn. You can follow the judges and just listen as they judge the fish. So that was a very good experience for us. They had seminars on different things also. So that's kind of how I got into the guppies, was through Aquabid and joining the IFGA. But how I got into the guppy business, which I would call a side gig, which is really all it was. It wasn't really planned. It just kind of happened. You know, I went from one thing to the next. And it just provided a little additional income. And now that I'm retired, I appreciate that a little additional income that I get. And as I said, all along, I kind of sold from time to time to local fish stores. Sometimes it was just trading for supplies. But I reached a point where I had bred some really nice red deltas fish. So I thought, well, why don't I try Aquabid? If they can do it, maybe I can do it. So I made an auction. My username on Aquabid is Bayway. And it sold. And I was kind of shocked, you know, that it actually sold. Sold my first trio for $15. And generally, guppies sell by trios. That's one male and two females. So I sold my first trio in 2005, and I got hooked on it. I just really enjoyed doing that. And then I got a bad case of strainitis, which probably some of you have had. Every pretty strain I saw, I wanted to get. And so I started getting more and more. And the more strains I bred successfully, the more I sold. And as I told you earlier, I had a partiality for the albino. And albino's a little more difficult to breed and to raise. They're just a little less hardy than the non-albinos. And because I was successful at that, I was able to sell quite a bit, even to some of the top IFGA breeders who would buy fish from me. And so that was just really, I guess, struck my ego when some of them would buy them, you know, and just wanted me to get into it a little bit more and a little bit more. So that leads to how I got a fish room. By 2008, I wouldn't say I needed more room, but I wanted more room for fish. And so I had a storage room renovated. Storage room within the house. And it's a small room. It's only an 8 by 10. And when I first started, it's an 8 by 10 room, but it has a very tall ceiling. So I started with just on one side with fish. And as you can see, I put the fish tanks on muscle racks, metal racks, is what I use for them. But eventually I went and put them on the other side. So I have them on both sides of the room, the length of the rooms. On the end I have a sink and just some shelving for some other things for some storage in the room. But as I said, it has a tall ceiling, and because of that tall ceiling, I was able to put an elevated 50-gallon drum that's connected to the sink that I'm able to fill up. And then I use that for partial water changes, and I just use it with gravity, just gravity feed. Of course, I suction the tanks with a python, and then I put the water back in just with gravity. And the hose I have reaches all around the room really easily. The next picture, probably, I'm really not superstitious, but I almost don't want to brag on this thing because this is my air source. This is the air pump that I've used for 14 years continuously. and it has never given me 1 minute's problem. Knock on wood. When I bought it from Steve Rebecki at Angels Plus. Some of you may be familiar with him. He was selling these. I bought an additional diaphragm kit because I figured it would go out within a year or two. I mean, most pumps with diaphragms do. And it's still sitting there in its original packaging, never been used. So, and it's quiet compared to the big blowers, air blowers. And so if you're looking to get something, as I said, I have currently about 60 tanks. I've had as many as 70. I've cut back just a little bit. But this one, it supplies air to all my tanks. The only thing I have that's sending out air is this Elita pump. So if you're looking for a pump, I can recommend it. It's the only one I've ever had. And originally I just had regular tubing going from this to every tank I had. But a couple years ago, a friend helped me install, and I don't even know what you call this, this kind of tubing, and then I have air tubes that come out from it that go into each tank. So they get air better this way. So that's kind of the fish room. How I breed guppies. I have three sizes of tanks. 2.5 gallon for drop tanks. That's what I put the females in, and what I raise the fry in until they reach a certain size. I have 5.5 gallons, which I use primarily for breeders, and I'll talk about how I breed them in a minute, and then I use 10 gallons for grow out tanks. As I said, they're there as on those mussel racks. But I do a lot of fish. I raise a lot of fish in the tanks. I read somewhere that it's recommended that you have no more than 4 guppies per gallon. So that would mean in a 10 gallon you could have as many as 40. Sometimes I have more than that. And because I have more than that, I have to change water a lot. So I do a partial water change, 20 to 25% water change every third day. I'll do one side of the room one day, I'll do the other side the next day, and the next day I take off, and then I start back. And it takes me about an hour to do a partial water change for all of the tanks on one side or the other side. My tanks are bare. I don't have any decorations. I don't have any gravel. I don't have anything. In my tanks I have guppies, and in the same tanks I'll have cories. And so the cories are good to eat, whatever food doesn't get eaten by the guppies. And then I have 3 or 4 tanks just dedicated to the breeding of cories, 10-gallon tanks.
What are the forks for?
I'm sorry?
What are the forks for?
Oh, I also have, that's what holds down my cucumbers for my plecos. and I'm out of cucumbers at the moment, so all you're seeing are forks. Okay, sorry about that. My cucumbers are gone. But you can use squash too, and they like squash. I use box filters, and for the small tanks, that's all I have in it is one box filter. And the 5-gallon, 10 gallons, I have a box filter and a sponge filter. For the box filters, I'm cheap. I go as cheap as I can, folks. And so I use a very cheap filter medium. I buy boxes, 5-pound boxes of polyester fiberfill. You can get it at Walmart, and I use those. I usually buy several, and they get them shipped to me for free. I buy several at a time. I feed my fish 3 times a day. The 2 primary things that I feed, almost exclusively what I feed, are high-protein flake food mixes and newly hatched brine shrimp. I get my flake food from Ken's Fish, and I'll get a variety of kinds. I'll get earthworm, beef heart, guppy mix, several others. And I usually will order a pound of each of those, at least 5 pounds. And when I get them shipped to me, I go ahead and I just crumble them all up because they're in bags that take up, if you just put them in those bags, it'd take up a whole lot of space in your freezer or whatever. So I just go ahead and crumble them all up, and I mix them all up. And I mix them up to where I have about, this bag that you see will last me a month. And so I go ahead and mix a bag that'll last me a month. And I put that in the refrigerator. I have a small refrigerator in the fish room on top of the rack. I put that in the refrigerator, and then I put the rest in the freezer. And the brine shrimp eggs, a can, 16-ounce can, will last me a month. And I order 6 at a time from Brine Shrimp Direct. Keep one in the refrigerator and keep the rest in the freezer. And it lasts me about 6 months. I will say this about brine shrimp. Every really successful breeder that I know uses baby brine shrimp. I'm not saying they don't use other type of live foods, but a live food is essential to raising good breeding fish. I've tried the other microworms and Daphnia and several different kinds, but the one that seems to work the best, and Guppies just eat it up and Corys eat it up, is brine shrimp. So I would recommend trying it and see how. I get it from Brine Shrimp Direct, or American Brine Shrimp, either one. And I said I feed 3 times a day, and what I do is I alternate. One day I'll start with shrimp, then do flake food and shrimp. The next day I'll start with flake food and do shrimp and flake food, and just rotate each day that way. Let's see what else. One thing, I'll move on to breeding. There's really about only 2 ways that breeders that I'm aware of breed successfully guppies. One is line breeding, and I'm sure you've heard of line breeding, and that's primarily the reason they're sold as trios. 1 male, 2 females, and you can start 2 lines of fish. Eventually, a couple of generations down, you'll cross them back to one another, and you can start it again with doing the line breeding, and then you cross them back. That is the number one way that the big successful experts, professionals, that's how they go about breeding. You know, they pick out their best breeders, and they may even breed, let's say they'll breed a female back to its, I guess, grandfather, or if there's one that's lived that long, because, you know, guppies may live a year. That's kind of stretching it for most people to get them to live that long. But that's the primary way, and that's really explained in detail in that book, and in the articles that you could see in the IFGA really go into great detail about it. The other way, and this is what I do, is through colony breeding. And what is colony breeding? Sometimes I'll sell my fish in what I call colonies. A colony can be 2 males and 3 females, to 2 males and 4 females. And the reason I use colony is because to do line breeding requires a lot of tanks. I know one guy who is one of the officers in the IFGA, and he really just focuses on one line, and that's half black pastel, and he's won prize after prize after prize. And he told me, my wife will only let me have 15 tanks. She won't let me have any more. And I can only do one line, one species, one strain successfully with 15 tanks. So it takes a lot of tanks. Well, I like too many of them to just do that, you know. So I use colony breeding. And what I do with that is I'll have 2 really nice males with 4 or 5 what I think are really nice females. And then from their fry, I will choose what I think will make really good breeders, just from the traits that I'm looking for. And there's different kinds of guppies. The ones I like to breed are the ones that you've seen are delta tails. They have the big tails. I mean, there's some with veil tails that are more narrow. There's sword tails, double sword tails. There's several different kinds. But So you choose what you think is going to be really good breeders, and then you set you up another colony. And that's the way I do it, rather than the line breeding, because I wouldn't have enough tanks to do that. The other way, it's not really a way per se, is it's something I do once a year or once every 2 years, and that is I will import or I'll buy a lot from Thailand, from some breeders I know there. And I don't know them, but I mean, I buy from them, put it that way. I don't personally know them, but, and it's exciting to buy them from overseas like that and get them. I've had success stories. I've had some real failures with what I've gotten, but overall, that's one way to get new genes into your fish. So in other words, the sky blue, the albino sky blue, or the topaz that I talked about earlier, one way that I've kept them going is by getting more every other year and just crossing them and getting new genes into them, because albinos have a tendency to become infertile. And so if you don't cross them, that's what will happen. So there's line breeding, colony breeding, and then importing them. And one thing I have to say and have to really emphasize is you have to cull your fish. And some people really don't like doing that, you know. You have to look, if it's not up to the standard you want or you think people want, if you want to sell fish, then you just have to get rid of them. You have to take them out. And my backyard is really a good graveyard for fish. I mean, they just go out the door. I had one guy who says, "Don't do that, just save them for me, and I'll take them." So when Donnie's been here, some of you have met Donnie Barnett. Donnie's been to some of these meetings. And Donnie says, "If I come, you just give me what you don't want, I'll take them." I said, "All right," but you have to cull them. And the other thing I said is it takes time. It takes an hour and a half a day. You got to be able to put that in. To a room my size, and my room's not that big. I mean, people who have a lot bigger rooms, I don't know how they really do it. Well, that's kind of how I go about doing the breeding. How I sell them, you can tell a preacher, everything starts with how I have to have a, gotta have an outline here. How I ship guppies. I would say this. Well, let me get back to what I was going to say. How I sell guppies, not ship. Shipping is next. How I sell them. A well-fed, healthy guppy will be ready to sell at 2.5 to 3 months. Okay, if they're well-fed, if you've given them space to grow, they'll be the size to sell at 2.5 to 3 months. Most often, I sell them on, Aquabid. It's where I sell the largest majority of my fish is Aquabid. And I have built up over the years 1,600 feedbacks with no negatives. And that's been my goal, is to not get any negatives, because feedback's what sells fish. If you have some bad feedback, I don't. If somebody has a lot of negative feedback, I just go somewhere else. I don't. And I buy from Aquabid, too, still, today. If there's something I see that's really nice, I'll buy from them if they have good feedback. And I've sold a whole lot more than that. I don't enjoy going and leaving feedback for things, and most people don't. So I've sold a whole lot more than that over the years. But one reason I believe I've been able to do that is to have the positive feedbacks, is that I always sell healthy fish. If a fish is showing any sign of illness or distress, I won't sell them. I will contact them and say, "Hey, I'm sorry, the fish don't look good right now, and I don't want to send you something, and you get it, and it's in bad shape, and I'll refund you money." I most often take payment via PayPal, and it's just real simple to issue a refund to them. And so the other thing is I ship as quickly as possible, just as quick as I can get the fish to them and they want them. I don't wait around. I have ordered fish, and it's been weeks and weeks, and finally for some of them I just gave up And I had to ask eBay. This was on eBay. I had to complain to eBay. I have never gotten my fish. And they'll issue you a refund, But I always try to ship just as quickly as possible. And I always try to be courteous and leave positive feedback for them. And Aquabid has forums on it. And I would encourage if you go on Aquabid, go and read some of the forums. And that's kind of how I got more involved in Aquabid. And I read a forum on there one time, a question answer thing, and one guy, it was about feedback, and then one guy was upset because he got some negative feedback. And so he was saying, or one of them was saying, I'd leave positive feedback for my customers as soon as they pay me, because that's all that they owe me, is to pay me. And if they pay me, I'll leave a positive feedback for them. And so as soon as somebody pays me for an auction, I will go and I'll leave positive feedback, just super fast pay. Thank you for buying my fish. A++++, and just always leave positive feedback for folks. And what I've found is that 95% or more of the people who buy fish are courteous in return. I find that fish folks are great folks. I have developed so many good friendships over the years. Probably 50% of the folks who buy fish from me are repeat, and some of them are repeats. Some of them we call, we text. I just have a lot of great friendships that I've developed over the years. I have a friend in California who contacted me recently. I hadn't heard from him, and he had gotten really sick and had lost all of his fish. Some lines he said he had had for 50 years. I felt so sorry for him, and so I sent him some fish and just said, just some great friendships that we have. I do have a website. That's kind of the header that I use, our Gorgeous Guppies. I sell some on the website, but I didn't really create the website to sell. People can't go and just buy and put something in a cart and all that kind of stuff. I really did it for information, because a lot of times, even though I'd sell on Aquabid, people would ask me, well, how do you do this? And how do you feed your fish? And and I'd say, check out my website, because it has a page on it there for care and feeding and assimilation, all the ways that I do things. And it was just easier for me to say, hey, go to this, and my website's really cheap. I mean, really, really cheap. I think I pay like $6 or $8 a year for it. So it's really cheap. But it's just the go-to mainly. Sometimes people will contact me and say, I want to get fish. And so through the website, I will do it that way. But it's mainly through Aquabid. On my website, I have the feeding regimen, how I treat sick fish, how I acclimate them, and just different things about guppies, some of the things. Well, how I ship fish. Okay, let's get into shipping fish. Here's some boxes that I use, and I brought some today, and I'm going to open them in a minute. I have fish in them. I'll give to the donation table. But I wanted to just show you how the first time that I shipped fish back in 2005, I broke out into a sweat. I was so nervous about doing it because I'd just never done that. And the only examples I had was from people I had gotten fish from. So I was trying to do it like what I saw them do. And I could tell you some horror stories that we don't have time to go into today of some really fails that I had, that they didn't get there, the boxes were leaking and all that sort of stuff. So here are some of the boxes that I use. You can get some from the post office free. And this is the one from the post office. These two boxes that I have are the most used sizes that I use. I can put 4 fish maximum in this with insulation. And I'll go ahead and just kind of show you. It's not hard to do. It's really not. I've reached the point where I kind of enjoy doing it. Matter of fact, I enjoy all of it or I wouldn't do it. So I'll just go ahead to the next one just to show you what kind of insulation I use. I use this panel board insulation that you can get at Lowe's. It has 6 panels in it. If I can go back to the one before, you can see this part here. I do templates. Make me some templates of the boxes so that I don't have to measure every time that I do a box. So I have templates for this size, which is a 7 6x6. This is 8 by 8 by 8. I have 9 by 9 by 9, 10 by 10 by 10, and 12 by 12 by 12. But I don't have any of the 12s because that's really big. But I have templates that I use through size 10. And so I cut them out and I line each box with these. They're not cut out perfectly, but they don't have to be. And then I bag the fish. I double bag them, and if you don't double bag them, you're in for some heartache. Because some bags leak. They may not leak when you put the fish in it, but somewhere along the way, they may start leaking. And if that's the case, then you need another bag that catches that leak. Also, not everybody does this, but I single bag every fish. And in this one, these are, if you want to just pass it around, you can look at them. And I write on the bag what these are. These are albino half black pastels. And the females don't look like much. These are young fish. They're only about 3 months old. I line the box with some little newspaper, and maybe I put some of the cotton batting in the bottom of it just as a cushion. And that's how I ship them. In the 8 by 8 by 8, I can put a maximum of 10 fish. I won't cut these bags open to individual ones, but here I have 4 albino blue topaz. If you want to pass them around.
As far as which are you looking at?
As far as the air is concerned, I just catch the air in. You have 1/3 water, 2/3 air. And as long as it doesn't get too hot or too cold, I've had them to survive up to 10 days because they got misshipped and sent back to me, and they were still alive. So, here I have 6 black Moscows.
Do you condition the fish for shipping, like cut back on feed?
Some people do condition, they don't feed them. I don't do that. I just ship them. It's too hard to pull. For me, it's too much trouble to pull them and put them in another tank. I don't feed them the morning that I ship. And I generally ship on Mondays and Tuesdays. But I don't feed them those mornings. Let's see if I got anything else here about shipping. I do, just in this bag, I'll show you the size bags I use. This is the bag for the individual fish. It's 3 by 12.
How do you get them in there?
Huh?
How do you get them in there?
Well, actually, there is a little trick to it. I use quart jar, and you stretch the top of the bag like that, and you can fold it back if you want. Put it in the jar, put your water in it, and drop the fish in it from your net. So that's what I use for the individual. This is what I use, the bigger bag, which is a 6 by 20, I think. So that's the larger bag. And then I drop the individual bags in there and tie those up. Also, if it's cold, you have to put a heat pack in it. Heat packs can be tricky. They don't always work. They fail sometimes. But the thing about heat packs is I ship all year long unless it gets too cold. And what I mean by too cold is below freezing. heat packs do not work below freezing. They will not emit heat. They also have to have air. So you cannot put them in an airtight box and it work. Matter of fact, if you use a box like this, if I get boxes like this and I use them in the winter, this isn't my box, somebody else brought this. But if you use a box like this, what I do is I take a screwdriver and I put holes in the bottom so the air can circulate. I ordered fish from a guy one day who wanted to be a transshipper. A nice guy I bought fish from before, but I had ordered some fish, and he wanted to be my transshipper. And I said, okay. He shipped fish to me. It was in the wintertime. He thought he was doing a good thing. He put a trash bag in the box and lined the box with a trash bag. But then he put the heat pack inside the trash bag. Guess what happened? I had about 3 dozen fish, and all of them were dead because the heat pack would not work. So heat packs are just kind of a learning thing. You can get them in different sizes that last different lengths of time. This is the most common one that I use, which is 40 hours plus. I do encourage people, when I ship either UPS or USPS, and I recommend, what I've been doing lately is UPS. And along with that, I just want to say, I use Pirate Ship. Are any of you familiar with Pirate Ship? Okay, for a few years I used shipping.com to help with the shipping and save some money on shipping. But you had to pay them $20 a month. Whether you sold anything or not, you still had to pay them $20. And I had some kind of negative experiences. So I thought, I can't keep doing that. So I found this free, it's called Pirate Ship. And they're great. I love them. I have nothing negative to say about Pirate Ship. And they play off of being, let's see, I thought I had that somewhere here. Did I put it on here? There it is. Pirate Ship. They play off of being pirates, you know. And you, their customer, you're the captain. And they're your mates. And if you have any problems, they're immediately there to answer your questions. They're so easy to get a refund. They let you set up boxes. I don't have to go in and plug in all the information about every box. I just go in and say it's this size box that I've named. I give it a nickname, and I just go in and because I know about the weights of most boxes. This box full of fish is 3.3 pounds. So, I get where you know those things after a while, and so you can just plug those things. So I would recommend if you do get into selling and you want a third-party help, go with Pirate Ship. And just end with a little story of a boy at the post office one day. Because I write on the box live fish. And a lot of times people would see that and they'd say, live fish? And I'd had adults ask me, how do you ship live fish? And I use them the old hobbyist joke, teach them to hold their breath. But seriously, there was this little boy one day, he was with his mother, and I dropped the fish off, and I was walking out, and the mother said, ask him, go ahead, ask him. I said, what do you want to ask? And he got shy, he wouldn't say anything. And so the mother said, he wants to know how you ship live fish. And so I didn't have these, but I just described. I said, well, I have little bags, and I put 1/3 water and make sure it has 2/3 air and tie them up and put them in plastic bags. And then I ship them off to people who buy them. And the mother said, and then they eat them. I said, no, they don't. They don't eat them. I said, these are going to aquariums. Oh, okay. I don't know where she got in her head that anybody would ship live fish that would be eaten. And as I conclude, I want to make just an unashamed promotion. You might see I have a shirt on. This shirt is for the Deep South Guppy Associates. That's a club I belong to. And the IFGA sanctions, we are one of 6 sanctioned IFGA clubs across the U.S. And they're from New England to California, Michigan, Wyoming. There's a lot of different places where they are. Anyway, our club's very small. We have members from Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi. And we're going to be meeting next Saturday at my house at 10 in the morning. And any of you are welcome to come. We would love for you to come. And if you have any interest in guppies, you don't have to join the club. We meet kind of similar to this, not nearly as many people, but we fellowship. We bring guppies or other fish that people want to auction off, and then you get them real cheap, and it goes to pay expenses for the club. But every club has to put on shows. You have to have an IFGA show. And so there's like 6 shows throughout the year in different parts of the U.S., like that one I said I went to. Not all of them are that large. There's one show that's called the annual, and that's the end of the season show. But it's also the show where they elect officers, where they do teaching, where they have seminars, where they award their annual awards, where people reach the level of master breeders and all these sorts of things. That's going to be in October after your meeting, October the 21st and 23rd in Murfreesboro. And it's going to be at the Clarion Inn. And if you could possibly make it there, you would love it. You don't have to come and stay. I'll just tell you, the primary show's on Saturday. That's where they do the real showing. And to see how a fish show is run, what they do, our club's going to be doing it this year. It is a lot of work, but I really enjoy it. But to see all the fish that they have on display and how they go about judging them and how they win. If you just like fish, aquarium, you would love a show like that. I did. You don't have to belong to anything. You don't have to join anything. But if you would just be interested. This is the first club shirt I've ever had. We just got them, actually, some new ones, but I was showing it off today. And we'll also have a fish room at my house. We'll have a fish room tour, which will be very short because it's a little room. It won't take very long. And then we'll go out and eat together. So just wanted you to be aware of that. And thanks again for letting me come and share. And I don't know how long I took, but I took however long I took. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
We got some questions.
Sorry.
Oh, yes.
It's actually more commentary.
Questions are
but,
fine.
So I went to one of those shows. It was just as amazing as you described. It was really, really cool. They had a speaker there. He was from Thailand. He said, for years I wanted to have software that showed you how colony and trait tracking worked. I couldn't get funding. But just so you know, I've made it. It's available for free. So if y'all want to have that, he mentioned it there. He said, but you're going to have to understand how to get funding the way I did. So it's called Bratz Fish Tank Babies. And it shows like all these different fish, and you pick the traits and you can track it. But it was made by Mattel for the Bratz. So that software is out there, but it's called Bratz Fish Tank Babies.
Yeah.
And you can actually do like the same. That book was what he referenced, and he said the way that he described it in there is the way I built the algorithm. So if you want to track and like learn how you can do strains, you can use my software. It was really good story.
All right.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Yes.
All right, y'all, you talked about calling them out. Everything's about beauty, everything's about beauty. But do you ever call out female fish who eat their own babies?
What I have found, and I actually had this in my notes, I didn't mention it. You probably won't like my answer.
I bet I do.
I have found that very healthy, very well-fed female guppies will not eat their fry. My guppies don't eat their fry. That is when they're in a drop tank by themselves. Okay, they don't eat their babies. Now, if you have other adults in there with them, they're going to be a snack. You just swimming by. But if if you have fish that eat their fry, we were talking about that earlier. What's that thing you can get that drop down? A breeder box, breeder trap. Those work pretty good. Some, I used to be told, oh, I won't get albinos, they eat their babies. Albinos are horrible about eating their babies. And they're not. you just have to be sure they're well fed and they're healthy and they won't eat them. I'll watch them because I'm often afraid. As soon as they drop their babies, I try to take the female out, of course. But there are times when she's not finished, so I'll sometimes catch her having her babies, and so I'll watch her to see if she's eating them. And every once in a while, there'll be one that will. And because I do have so many fish, I call them, because I have generally a good number of females, I'll call her out. But generally, I don't have that problem. Anybody else got questions? Yeah.
As far as like people in the meeting today and stuff, like if we message you, can we like instead of going through the shipping process, like a public meetup or something like that, if we're interested in purchasing fish? Because I'm not really a big fan of shipping fish, and especially if you're local.
Oh yeah. Kurt's come to the house. Yeah.
You do parking lot fish sales?
Yes, I do.
Meet up at Walmart.
Yeah, I have met people at places. When COVID was so bad, I'd say I'll bring them to your car. I mean, they would come to the house, and rather than come in the house, I would take the fish out to them. But yeah, and you're welcome to come and look at my fish. I'd be happy to show you the fish room. I enjoy just talking fish. Matter of fact, I'll probably keep you too long if you come. You'll want to get away, and I'll let you get away. But you know, one of the fascinating things for me about guppies is I love angelfish, and I do. I would love, but angelfish require a lot of room, a lot of grow out room, a lot of. And the thing about guppies is, you know, they drop fry every 30 days, 25 to 30 days. And so you've got a lot of quick turnaround. And you can create your own. One guppy calls himself Guppy Designer. So he kind of creates his own strains. I mean, you put this one together and this color together and see what you got. You got your own strain. Unique, probably nowhere else one like that. And that's one of the things I really enjoy about them is getting some and just crossing them. Recently, I created my own strain of the albino full platinum by crossing some and getting some albino ones and then going with that. And I just enjoy that kind. That's, you know, I don't have any decorated tanks anywhere. The largest tank I have is a 10-gallon one. And unlike a lot of you, I have beautiful tanks. I've seen them on your websites, just gorgeous tanks. And I know that you enjoy sitting and watching them, and I don't enjoy sitting and watching them. I want to be, whenever I got fish, I wanted to be breeding. I wanted them to have babies, whatever they were, whether it's guppies, angelfish, whatever I've had in the past. I always wanted to get babies. Parakeets. I used to have parakeets, you know, I want babies. Do what?
I said the ugly ones, the pretty ones, they don't matter.
That's right. You just want to see them have babies and watch them grow. Any other questions? I'm willing to stay as long as you want.
I have 3 kids.
Your club you mentioned, do you guys have like a Facebook or a website or any kind of link?
There is a Facebook. Deep South doesn't have a website. The IFGA does. So I would encourage you to go to ifga.org and check out that website. It's worth joining for a year. If you're not interested in staying a part of it, join it for a year for $25 and read their articles. And because their articles apply to almost any kind of fish, specifically to guppies, but you can apply them to any of the fish that you're raising, that you care about. You can add to your knowledge. And that's what really helped me. Your fish are going to get sick. What do? You're going to lose a lot of them. It happens. I have lost whole tanks of fish. Very frustrating. They get sick and you can't stop it. It doesn't matter what you do, they're going to die. And you're going to have to get used to that. But over the years, that's happened less and less to me because I have learned what works for me and for my water parameters and my setting, what works for me. On my website, I point out that I used to use all the real expensive medications to try to, and it didn't work. So I come up with 2 things that I use, and it's a little fungus, antifungal things you can get at Walmart, little round tablets. I use that and just some generalized medicine. I treat them with that. And generally it works. If it doesn't work, I say, I'm not gonna get you anymore. You know, I told somebody one time, these are tough guppies. If they live, it's because they endure with what I have. And so you just learn over time what works for you and what doesn't work. I don't tell people you should do this and you should do that. You should do what works in your situation, because you're going to have different water parameters than I have. People ask me all the time, before I ship to them, what are your water parameters? And I know you can give this whole long list of all these things. I said, I know two things. One is pH, it's about 6.8, and the temperature. And that's all I know. I don't keep up with any other things. It's just too much, because a lot of people say, do you treat your water with this? Do you treat your water with that? No, I don't. I know that some people use RO water. I don't know what that is. I have heard of it. I don't know what RO is. So I'm not complicated. What I do is extremely simple, and I do it the cheapest way I can. And I just enjoy doing what I do. Same thing over and over every day. I'm very much into routines. Anybody else?
Once again, thank you very much.
I just point this out. This is what I use in my tanks for babies to hide in. It's a yarn mop, and it's so easy to make. Just yarn and cork, and you can make them in different colors and different thicknesses. I don't have any live plants. I use this and plastic plants, because the lighting I have, I just have one overhead light. My tanks don't have lights over all of them, and plants won't grow because they don't have enough light, so I use these.
We've all been to Joann's buying yarn.
Oh, have you?
We're all like, oh, this is for my kid. Well, thank you very much, Bruce. That was awesome. You have a slide for me for this?
Yeah. There we go.
All right. So I'm going to do the species spotlight. These are the American flagfish. They are native to mostly in Florida around here. So they're American flagfish for they're named specifically for the color of the male. I know that's not exactly red, white, and blue, but pretty darn close. They are a pup fish, which is similar to our killifish. So some people call them native killifish, but they're in what they call the pup fish family. They have an interesting spawning technique, which is if you go on if you want to find something that's controversial, go in there and throw one of these two things out there. You can say, my male flagfish guards his fry, and there will be, if there's 1,000 people on the web on that forum, 500 will scream at the top of the lungs, "You liar, you liar, you liar," and the other 500 will say, "Oh, mine did that too." And then there are the other people who say that they drop their fry or drop their eggs and leave them. So they're an interesting spawn. Certain males, what they do to get them to spawn is you can use a spawning mop like that, but they actually like to kind of bury their eggs if they can, sort of like a lot of our killifish. So you can get a big thing of moss or take a spawning mop and set it on the ground, and they will lay it in that, or they'll even dig a slight pit. I know this is the controversy part. Some people are like, no, they don't dig slight pits. Yes, they do. I've had both males do one, they can pick one. So if you get a male that digs a slight pit, he will protect his fry. I've seen it in my outdoor pond. He will protect his fry, and he will guard them until they swim away at 3 days. And then you'll get the other ones who will lay in a spawning mop and leave it there. As soon as they lay those eggs, they're on to the next female to try and find another one to spawn with. And then you have to remove the parents, because the parents who lay in a spawning mop will turn around in an hour and eat all their eggs. But if you have the male who's protecting them, so it's a cool fish. It's very different. Like I said, it's an interesting thing to go on a forum about and be like, oh, mine protected. I mean, you will get hate mail. It's pretty fun. So they're very easy fish to keep. I like to summer tub. I love outdoor ponding. And so these guys give you almost 2 extra months of that. I typically put mine in when it's
about 38 degrees outside, and I just start putting them outside. I acclimate them slowly, and as long as your water doesn't get below like 38 outside, now that normally means your water temperature is about 45. If your water is about 45 degrees, they can handle it, and they can handle it almost until January. I've kept them outside very, very late, so you only have to keep them inside typically the month of January and sometimes February. So if you want to keep one outside, you can. A little longer the summer tubbing, and Mitch had brought it up the other day or today on, how long should I keep my tubfish outside? If you have these guys, you can wait a long time on these guys. So they're quite nice because they are native to Florida. You have to think about Florida sometimes. It gets pretty darn cold down there, and they don't all just die. If you want your fish to survive a little longer outside, just give them a little bit of peat moss and they'll bury themselves in it. They'll protect themselves. So they're in an aquarium. They're awesome blackbeard algae eaters. Those and SAEs are really your only true blackbeard algae eaters. They also will take the tip of your angelfish's tail off, as well as your beta fish or your guppy. They tend to be cookie cutter sharks at some point in their lives. They decide, hey, this is also delicious. I don't know what it is, but they will nip on those fins. So in order to prevent that, you should raise them single-sexed. If you have male and female in there, you might as well wait 3 days and you're gonna have a fight somewhere in there. But if you put all males in your tank or all females in your tank, they tend to hang out with one another. They don't fight nearly as much or go after other fish. They can eat some sensitive plants, depends on what that is, but if you have like a lot of plants in there, I've never had them pick out one plant like a lot of other fish will do. But they're really good algae eaters. I mean, they will sit there and pick and work all day. If you really like watching a fish work, this is your worker bee right here. Let's see, they eat, other than algae, they adjust a flake really, really easily. I mean, I feed my outdoor ones flake in. They love mosquitoes, anything alive or dead. They'll eat anything, but they don't eat fry. I've had guppy fry in my tanks with them. It's too much work to chase that thing. If it's right in front of me, I'll just snap it right up. Take my phone. Come on, Bruce. I didn't even think about it. He's like, oh, this is a nice phone. So they're one of our natives. Peaceful. They're relatively peaceful. They only get about 2.5 inches long. Some people think that they only live a year. I've had one live for at least 4 or 5 years, so don't think that they live a year. Other than that, that's pretty much it. I mean, if you want to know more about them, I printed out the Seriously Fish thing, and that's how I learned about them for the most part. So I've got a couple of them. Derek, for your question, I've got a couple of them that will give away. They are 2 males, really young. You want to start them young in your aquarium and feed as lightly as possible to get them hooked on algae. Just like with any other fish, if you feed me, why am I going to eat algae if I'm getting fed by this guy? So don't feed them so much when you first put them in, and they will figure out that algae is their primary food source. So, okay, yes, Derek, what's your question?
I was going to say, talking about how much they love algae, and also their spawning technique. We have some in a tank, and they were starting to nibble on the plants, so I grabbed a wad of hair algae from a different tank, about fist size, and threw it in the tank. The male hollowed out a little depression in there. They spawned, and then I didn't take the eggs out fast enough, and they could not resist the algae, and they ate all of the algae and all the eggs that were in the algae.
So maybe he was trying to teach his, and I also saw that he mated with his children, and you were like, oh, this is not cool. I mean, they will use anything they can they love string algae. Mine are always laying in moss, guppy grass, you name it, they'll lay an egg on it. I had a pair in one of my community tanks, and I had duckweed. That's what I feed mine, is duckweed. I feed them all out. And one day, I guess they felt a little froggy, and they decided to spawn in the duckweed. The duckweed has, eggs this big. So I saw where they had spawned, and I just took a scoopful out and put them in a little 2-gallon tank, and booyah, I had babies in a week. So they will even spawn at the surface. So they shall not be deterred. I have an outdoor pond that I've got native fish in, and I put some in there this spring. I put a pair, and the other day I was literally sitting there watching, and I saw a group of, I quickly counted 23 of them. There's that many in there. They've been constantly, they were all in my, they're everywhere. They're really cool fish to see, so. Natives, nice and easy. So, like I said, I'm gonna put them up on the, oh, you already got them. Put them on the auction table, whoever, picks their, you're welcome to take those guys as well. They're both males, the ones that I've donated, so.
So you really find that all males are all females and not like females are less aggressive than the males?
No, I don't, I've had, just like anything else. I've met some dudes who are pretty cool, and then I've met some chicks that are pretty cool. And I've met same thing. I had a female flagfish last year that she had to hit the yard because no matter what, she would not stop hitting eyeballs. She was just an eyeball plucker.
Yeah.
And she just kept on hitting I was like, dude, you can't do that. That's the one that got my, one of my Barb's females. Took her eyeball right out. So she's gone. So every once in a while, you just get a mean fish, So for the most part, though, if you put them, they tend to take out their aggression on each other a little bit.
I've been scared to get any. I got some years ago, and I was like, oh wow, it's amazing. It's eating all the algae. And now it's eating everyone else.
Yeah. if there's male and female, that male will protect her. Like, he won't even let fish get anywhere near her when she starts to get ripe at all. One of the things I was going to say about spawning that I meant to bring up, if you want to spawn them, if you keep them together, they will spawn in little groups, but if you separate them for a week, you will have a humongous spawn. They're just like any other fish. They will just, she just loads up on eggs like that. So separate them as best you can. So, all right, there's your flagfish.
All right, I'm gonna go over this raffle one more time since we had a few people slide in at the end.